Hello. Why don't we start today with a mystery? We're in Mark chapter 14, verse 50. Then everyone deserted him and fled. A young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus. When they seized him, he fled naked, leaving his garment behind. What? You never hear that part? I've legitimately never heard that part. Anyways, some think this naked young man was Mark. Look, I've really got nothing for you. Let's move on. John chapter 18, verse 12. Then the detachment of soldiers with its commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it would be good if one man died for the people. This prophecy was mentioned before in chapter 11. Caiaphas got the right prophecy from God, but he had the wrong conclusion. He thought that Jesus was evil, and if Jesus was sacrificed, then the children of God, or the Jews as he thought, would be one. But in reality, it was Jesus' righteousness that brought all human beings together as one. Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus. Because this disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. Most people think this disciple was John. It's really not known how Caiaphas knew John. Could be that his father Zebedee knew him. But now Peter could get closer. He probably already felt ashamed that he cut off a guy's ear without Jesus' permission. It seems he wanted to get close to try and find a way to make it up to Jesus. But unfortunately, he was going to fail again. Luke 22:55. But when they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter sat down with them. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked closely at him and said, "This man was with him," but he denied it. "Woman, I don't know him," he said. A little later someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." "Man, I am not," Peter replied. About an hour later another asserted, "Certainly this fellow was with him, for he is a Galilean." Peter replied, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. And Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him, "Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. There are a lot of bad things we can do, but disowning God is probably one of the worst ones. Does it feel like one of the easier ones, though? When death threatens you because you call yourself a God follower, then your gut tells you to deny it. But even in more minor situations, you might rather identify in something else so that you'll seem cool. We should always feel ashamed when we disown God. Not to skip ahead, but Jesus has to ask Peter 3 times if he loves him, because 3 times Peter essentially said that he doesn't love him. Back to John 18:19. Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. "I have spoken openly to the world," Jesus replied. "I always taught in the synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said." When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby struck him in the face. "Is this the way you answer the high priest?" he demanded. "If I said something wrong," Jesus replied, "testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me?" Then Annas sent him still bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Most scholars believe that the wording of this basically means that Annas was not the official high priest, but the power behind the high priest. We found that he has been behind the scenes when 5 of his sons were the high priest, and his son-in-law Caiaphas, who was the current high priest. It's almost as if he's gotten multiple terms, although people believe it's still a democracy. Kind of scary. A large amount of Jesus' responses to accusations about him from here on boil down to, "I've said all I need to say." He's never pleaded and he never clarified. He just states that he has said who he is, what he came here for, and he told a lot of people all of this. He doesn't need to clarify. This is a good lesson for us. Debates aren't necessarily bad, but there's a time for them and there is not. Mainly just because of Jesus' words. "He who has ears, let them hear." It's like the term talking to a brick wall. If someone's not listening, then you're just talking to a brick wall. Don't be discouraged, because some people will come who will actually listen, but that's not everyone. And I certainly feel like there are people that are just looking for a fight. It's strange, and I don't get it myself, but some people live to fight. We have to not give them what they want. So sometimes you don't need to clarify why you're Christian. You just are, and that's that. Thanks for listening, guys.